Hey guys, Jessica Henry here. I am starting the third lesson of our third module for the Victorian watercolor, and I am at this beautiful Frostville Park here in Ohio in the Rocky River area. And what I'm going to do is just walk around a little bit and take in the scene. I've got these incredibly beautiful historic buildings over here, and right over here I have this gorgeous church. I don't think I'm going to paint it, but it is lovely. I think I'm going to step inside and look at some of the stained glass if it's open. And I'm going to walk down the path a little bit this way and just get a perspective of where it is that I want to paint. So that is how I'm going to start out. And I do that with the oil painting too. So whether you're doing oil painting or Victorian watercolor, the concept is the same. Just taking the flavor of the situation. All right, let's get going. I'm at this beautiful historic park looking for a place that I can set up my chair and just sit and draw. There's doing a little bit of work over here, but barn. Just kind of getting a flavor of the place. When you get to any place and you're going to do a plein air painting, just walk around first and see what it is that inspires you. You might like the way the light shines through a tree, or the way it's hitting a building, or the curve of a path. Just remember your lighting is going to change very quickly, so you want to consider that where you set up and what angles you choose. I'm leaning towards back down the driveway that way, looking back at those buildings, so I'll keep walking around and see what I can find. So what I have here is I just set up my basic tripod, and this attachment here, you can buy this from Art Box and Panel. It's the top feature that holds the canvas when you're doing plein air painting. I'm going to use it today for my watercolor. They also sell these longer canvas holder things. They have different sizes, so you can pick up those different ones. So I'm going to put this in my tripod attachment here, and I will be putting my watercolor block on here. So I'm going to get set up and show you how I do that with watercolor plein air. All right, so what I have here today is my standard 7x10, 140 pound cold pressed watercolor paper. I'm going to put that in my canvas brackets right here. Okay, so that is ready to go. And then I'm just going to hold my palette and get started painting. I have a little collapsible water container, and I can just hang that from my easel here. There's some little screws down below, and I brought along a small water bottle for my water. Put that in there, and you don't want to use all your water in case that gets really gross and you need to dump it out and have a little reserve. So all that's left is my palette, my roll of brushes and pencil, and my paper towels. So I'll just use one of these at a time. So I could do the outhouse kind of right there. And then this is all backdrop. When I squint at that scene, it's pretty much, this is the whole dark area. Darker value. I could do some buildings back here. I kind of want this play with the sun right in this area to be the center of interest. So maybe I'll even just suggest a tree over here to help frame that in. I can pull a different tree a little bit closer. Okay. I'm just kind of putting the main characters in place here.
Okay.
This is the outhouse. Okay, so what I'm going to do is start out by just putting a simple tone of light sunny yellow over the whole paper. And this is my base color for the whole painting. When I look out at the view, I'm concluding that that is the brightest light. I'm not going to put it over the sky because that is more blue. And if I put yellow down as a base and then painted blue over it, it would appear green, so I don't want to do that. So with my large mop brush, I'm just putting this where I see some of that really bright yellow green peeking through, and it's okay if it drips all the way down. Okay, it's showing up. So that's, you may not see much of my palette in this video, but I'll hold it up every once in a while. Okay, so we'll just, while that is kind of thinking about drying, I'm going to take a little bit, I'm using a smaller sable brush now, and just mixing up a very light shade of green, taking some of that bright yellow again, and letting some of these colors just sort of blend while I have them here and they're wet. Just where I want them in the background. I'll come back through later with my darker colors layered over the top. Okay, so we'll just let that layer down. Kind of trying to avoid some of the buildings because I don't want a really predominant shade of green in them. So we'll just let that sort of have that feeling of being in shade, but not entirely. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry, and then I will come back and paint in the sky. Okay, now I have a mixture of some cobalt blue and some ultramarine blue. You don't have to have cobalt, but I like it for this particular beautiful blue sky day. Ultramarine blue is completely acceptable. Starting at the top, just gonna drag that puddle down. Make sure it's nice and wet. There are some pretty clouds in the sky today. You can go around the white of the paper to show those if you want. Paint the white clouds. Okay, now I have these little puddles here and there, so I'm going to take my dry brush and just let the tip of my brush soak up those puddles. Wipe it off on the paper towel like this, and go back and get those. Just nice clean washes for those. Now I have my stubby little brush up here. I'm going to get it slightly damp, dry it off, and then where I have these clouds, I'm just going to soften the edges a little bit. Wipe the brush off. Just create that illusion, while it's still wet, of softness. I may just do that everywhere. This just eliminates that hard edge where the two washes meet. And I'm softening this passage where that sky sort of leaked down into that. And that's okay that it did that because they can blend a little bit there. That's fine. Okay, and that is all you need for the sky and the first layers. All right, now, keeping in mind as I look at my scene, what is the next lightest light as we're going down the scale? So I'm gonna, while that's drying, I'm gonna mix up a little bit darker green. This painting today has a lot of green, so I'm going to play with different shades of green as I'm mixing colors. So yellow ochre, cadmium yellow, and maybe some ultramarine blue. We'll just get a nice variety of greens in here, but keeping them very light for now. More water makes it lighter. So I'm looking at my scene where I have in the furthest back passages of a little bit darker green than what I already have down. Working from the background forward. Letting the water just flow down the paper. But you don't want to get too much on there that it's out of control. So just a little bit. Now I am going around the roof line because that has, to me, I see a lot more of the violet undertones in that. So I'm going to play with more of that. And if I went with it too green, some of that effect would be lost of getting that violet cool tone in there. So taking my wet wash of green, just going down. That's okay that I did that. And I'm going to go on the shadowed side of these buildings because those shadows are really picking up that ambient green from the grass reflecting up in the shadows. And I'm going to clean my brush off and wipe off some of the green on this path because I want that to be kind of like the roof of the building. There's that little more of that violet sandy tone creating that effect. So, and just like I did the clouds, I'm going to clean that off a little bit. Okay. Okay, I think while that's still wet, I'm going to come back in through here and mix up a darker green, but I'm going to use some more ochre and blue, maybe even a little sienna. Forgot to mention at the beginning that I had got all of my paints wet prior to starting. So this is still in the background, and I want this a little bit more blue. So I'm thinking too about, I really wanted the focus of this area in here to have that really nice sunlit effect. So I'm working some of this darker green just around where I really want the light to be bright and intense. There's this really big pine tree back in here that I want to have a presence. Holding my palette up. This. And I'll give it some back value, darker value back in here too. By punching this a little bit darker, it helps to offset the sunlight around on the top of the trees, making them look a little bit more sunlit. On this side, we're going to add a little bit more ochre just to add some variety to the greens, because in spring you have some more different shades of golds and colored different leaf blossoms coming through.
You should be good right there.
Yeah, that's...
I'll just do
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Water tends to run that way. So.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to mix up a little bit of violet shadow over here. Ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson. I'm just going to paint this right where I see the bluer shadows of the grass with a little more blue. Just might as well go up the tree with that. There will be more layers on this tree before I'm done, so for now this is just sort of the initial layer of that tree color. Just giving some bones to the painting, a little bit of where things are going to sit in here. Okay, and over here. Hi.
Do you need to use the restroom while I'm here to let you in?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, honey. Hi.
So the stronger your shadows, the more sunlit your items will appear. So I'm gently, gradually pushing the shadows a little bit more as I layer in the colors. You don't want to go too strong, too dark, too fast. So just let the layers do their thing and let them dry. The massing in is always the most difficult part of any painting because this is where all of the intense thinking happens and big mistakes can happen at this level. So you want to just kind of keep working quickly and have a lot of your game plan figured out prior to starting. Know what it is you're going to do before you do it. So in this case, we know we need to work in layers, and so starting with the sunshine in the background and working my way through that, just building up layers. It gets to a point where I can then start to just really focus on the detail of the painting and just the fun layers and the little things that need to happen to make it successful. I'm not at that place yet. There's still some important larger massings to do, but I'm getting close. So that'll be a fun part. For now, it's kind of the don't breathe part. Let's just take it all a little bit at a time. Little bits. And some of the things in here I know that I will be doing and changing or kind of pushing a little bit more when I pen and ink it. So I'm just kind of taking a mental awareness of those items as well. And I want to rub out a little bit of that tree trunk while I'm thinking about it. Just a little. Okay, now I'm going to do some of the washes on this building. So that is a very purple roof when I squint at it. So I'll just take some alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue. Let's see what that does. If that's good for the first layer. That looks all right. It's going to be dry a little darker, so I have to be aware of that. And I'll add those shadows of the branches on the roof. I see the same color back here on these roofs, so I'll just paint over that back here too. Okay, and while that's a little bit wet, I'm going to get a little bit more of that darker violet shade and just draw in some of these branches on the roof. Nice and dark, just to look like shadow coming across a bit.
Put that on the internet.
building is, let's go with some yellow ochre, a little blue. I'm gonna start at the top and just drag that wash down. I'm gonna put it on the shadowed side too. I may as well go over the doors and windows because those will be a darker shade than this wall, so. And the outhouse is a little darker too, so we'll just go over that. Just dragging that wash down just like a normal Victorian watercolor wash. Okay, so that's all right with that. I'm gonna punch up some of these darks now that I see around here. Under this roof. So I'm painting around a bush back there that has more sunlight on it. By painting the dark of this pine tree back there, I can paint that sunlight. Clear my brush. Just take some of that and gently fade that up into that sunlit passage like that. When I come back through there with pen and ink, I can enhance some of those features a little bit more. And it's okay that I'm painting this tree, this pine tree, right over the branches of this darker tree in front, because the tree in front is going to be darker. Okay, so that is having the effect I'm looking for in there. See, there's depth now to that passage, and it can really help to make the central features here a little bit more sunlit. And then as I pen and ink it, that'll push it even more. I'm just going to add a few tree suggestions of trees back in there. Those sort of live in that dark area. Okay. I think while I am just letting that dry and sort of do its thing, I'll paint the outhouse now. I'll use a little bit more yellow ochre for that. Just right into some of this violet and some yellow ochre. And just pull it out in front of the house a little more. And get some green. There, we've been talking about broken color this week. I'm Pull in some of that darker shadow under the roof line of it. And I'll get the moon when I ink it. And those subtle details on there. I think though while I have this, I'll mix up a little bit bluer tone over here. Bluer brown for the cement on this lower portion of the house. And I'll do that roof with a little bit of that same violet color that I've been doing on everything. Okay. All right, now I'll do the path. Pretty soon I'm getting to the place where it's pretty much just some fun detail stuff. So yellow ochre, a little bit of alizarin crimson. And I'm gonna have a little bit of purple over here mixed up so that I can, while it's wet, I'll do some broken color. In the path. Taking some of that violet tone first, back there in the distance, and then some more of this sand color up front. Get that little waterier, a little wet, and pop in some blues. Pull in a few darker accents around here for the mud that make it look like the grass is tucked into the road there. Some richer green to some of these passages in here. And then I'll just gently layer that over the sunshine. Not all of it, but just some of the sunshine over here. Right up the tree trunk. I'll leave part of that tree trunk with some of that lighter tree color showing. Make it look like the sun is hitting that side of it. A little little bit more violet, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue. Throw in some ochre. This tree back here. Oh, I've got a fly on my paper. I want this tree to stand out a little darker, so I'm going to use more blue and more alizarin. Maybe some sienna. Be very careful. A lot of times you can lose your tree lines in the course of painting. So even as you're putting this tree back in, if you do this kind of thing, just rely on your observation to get it accurate. Or as close as possible. How you doing? Well, I'm almost done. That's interesting.
What's that?
Because the water pooled up down below here.
Uh-huh.
It pushed
Way
back.
up.
Yeah.
I wondered about that.
That's interesting. It's getting kind of hard to tell the colors because of the sun on it. I'll wrap it up here. Woo! It's been doing that. It's okay. I kind of just lean into it.
How to rotate the piece a little. Totally messed up.
Oh, I think you can still see it. Yeah. I'll just try to And over here. What that sound is. Pounding? Banging? Are you bored? You must be bored.
What's that?
You must be bored.
No. No, I mean, the reading was getting a little tedious.
Yeah.
Make it pretty.
I'm trying. I can't. I mean, if it... Oils are a little easier to get some more of that glowing effect. And if I was super good at watercolors...
I'll be back.
Okay. All right, Renaissance artists, that wraps up this watercolor module. I'm very excited to present next week Still Life. We are starting our Still Life module. So we will have 5 weeks of working in the studio, and I hope that you're excited for it too. All right, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.